Welcome back to the Bleeding Hearts Club, where we alchemize pain into something beautiful together. I'm your co host, Shroot. I'm an astrologer who helps you use somatics, self reflective astrology, and manifestation to strengthen your connection between Earth, the stars, and your voice. And this is my co host, Stevie.
Wow. I feel so twinkly hearing that. Hi, y'all. My name is Stevie. I'm your tarot reader. I'm a Reiki practitioner and a mental health and death worker. Hi.
I love it. I'm so happy to be back with you, Stevie. I know it's been a minute. Life has been lifing, as y'all must be experiencing as well. We are in full swing of the actual transits. Everything is super intense. And wanted to make sure that we got this out to you before eclipse season started because this is the episode we're focusing on the eclipses. And this is some of the most consequential eclipse energy of our lifetimes. Eclipses happen every single year. They are not this big a deal. But because we have so many shifts happening in the sky, they are particularly dramatic this time. So we wanted to make sure we had a whole episode dedicated to that. We got a lot of feedback about our last episode saying that a lot of people wound up re listening a lot and it wound up being a really powerful comfort in the face of everything going on right now. And so we're super honored to hear that. Thank you so much for that feedback. And we are hoping that this episode can offer you the same reprieve and balm from the intensity of the world right now. So thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being on this ride with us. We're having the time of our lives. So we will just get right into a horoscope. I feel like, why not? No beating around the bush this time. Let's get into it. So the tarot horoscope for this month is going to cover the dates of August 4th through September 1st of 2026. And if you're listening to this outside of those times, take what resonates. You were called to this episode for a reason. What deck are you using, Stevie?
I'm using the Kapwa Tarot deck from JL Umipig, and it is Filipino inspired, has a lot of like beautiful imagery, and it's just good medicine. My first card that I have for us is the Eight of Pentacles. If you're seeing this, I'm holding it horizontally because it's showing somebody in a field who is basically got their hands in the ground and they're harvesting some goods. This card, I feel like it represents a fresh start. I feel very fresh after this most recent full moon in Aquarius. I cried a lot. And I'm glad that I did. And now I feel refreshed. And I hope that you feel refreshed too. This card is asking us to really get our hands dirty, get in the mud, get in the goo, whatever else people do to get their hands dirty. Start integrating what you've been learning into your life, whether it's in your relationships, at work, your creative practices. I think it's just really asking you to try. If there's something that you've been wanting to take on or try or explore, I invite you to do so. I feel like this is a good starting point in general. For me personally, I was talking to Shroot yesterday about just how I've had a really hard time allowing myself to make medicine, whether it's with herbalism or spiritual tools. And I have been collecting eggshells for a very long time, too many months. There were 2 containers with little mountains of eggshells in my refrigerator for too long. And this week, I finally just moved with the momentum I had to start making cascarilla. And if you don't know what that is, it is basically a fine powder made out of eggshells. You can use it for cleansing, protection, banishing thresholds. It's very multifaceted. And it's one of the first, basically, like magical medicines, tools that were shown to me when I first learned that I was a little bruja. And I wanted to make it for a really long time. This was a week-long process because I have ADHD and I only have so much energy. So the first day, I boiled the eggs. I put those things back in the fridge. The second day, I put them in the oven so that they can dry out and further sanitize. And then I kept them in the oven. On the third day, I cried. On the fourth day, I finally grinded them with my mortar and pestle. And talking about getting your hands dirty, I instantly got a blister. And I feel like that was my one, a little initiation, but two, maybe a slap on the hand from the eggshells or my ancestors, or both, saying like, you don't have to be that rough. You could be gentle in this process. And that's just my little anecdote that I'm sharing with you. When I say that it's been a long time coming, it's been like 6 years. And that's okay, because I finally did it. And it wasn't a consecutive thing, but I learned a lot in the process. And I learned a lot about eggshells and what they can mean. Bless you, Shroot.
Thank you.
um, I learned a lot about eggshells because I gave myself the time to start and stop. And I can't get into it, but I learned about myself through these eggshells in a really interesting way. More on that sometime never. Anyway, try things out and focus less on whether or not it works, quote unquote, and more about what you learn about yourself in the process. I really want you to let curiosity take the wheel. And curiosity, as in not the what ifs, because I guess technically you could argue that that's curiosity, but more of the just find out. There's only one way to find out. And you never know what's on the other side of it. You may have proved yourself right. Great, good for you. Or you could surprise yourself and make cascarilla. I don't know. Anyway, I had this whole thing about what I wanted to say about babies. So I'm going to throw that in there anyway. I think we can learn a lot from babies in this moment. Maybe you feel baby right now. I know I feel baby, baby to this world. In order for them to learn how to walk, they have to try. They have to hold themselves up, take a step, they fall. They get up, take a step, they fall again. Maybe they catch themselves. Maybe they take a few steps and then fall. But you get the idea. Eventually, most babies learn how to walk. They can walk. And then they can run. And then they can skip and all of those things. But it starts with the process of trying, of starting, of not knowing before it's not something you really have to think about sometimes. And I just want to give you that permission, that affirmation, a little invitation. Just take a step. It's okay if you fall. You can get back up again. And then you can walk. Okay. Any thoughts?
Yeah, when you first sent me this poll last night, I was like, the number of people that have said to me in the last like 2 weeks that they feel like a baby right now is like so uncanny, and it like lined up so perfectly with the first card, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I think the reason for that is the South Node has now moved into Leo and the North Node is now in Aquarius. And we talked about the South Node especially last episode, so I highly recommend checking that out for a lot more details on the South Node in Leo. But I do think that the element that we didn't talk about was this aspect of like Leo rules child's play. And Leo rules kind of like exploration and adventure, and but specifically from the perspective of like what exploration and adventure mean from a childlike standpoint. So, adventure in like the most textbook sense is more Sagittarius oriented. So it's more like travel and climbing a mountain and doing all these big things. But like exploration and adventure from a Leo standpoint is literally like learning how to stand, learning how to walk, learning how to run, like so it's kind of like really a lot more building block oriented. And I think that's really relevant to kind of remember, these next 18 months, what does it look like to reconnect yourself with what it feels like to learn something new for the first time and to start at like those, before you start on climbing the mountain and scaling this whole thing and doing this big expedition, what does it feel like to run the treadmill for, an X amount of times and really start from the very beginning of the building blocks that get you to that big adventure. So I think like that's definitely something that we should really be reconnecting with in this period of time. But I also especially love the idea of really kind of leaning more into the north node of it all. So it's like, we're not just playing for playing's like sake. We're not just like fiddling around for fiddling around's sake. It's like what are you working toward? What is the vision that you're trying to reach for? So I loved CB's example of wanting to, make their own medicine and wanting to make their own materials to work with spiritually, and that being a goal that was 6 years old, and this idea that like yeah, today is a beautiful day to begin. You don't have to, there's no such thing as it's too late. There's no such thing as, oh, like, I waited too long, it's too late. You can always begin again, and you can always keep moving in the direction of this vision that you have for yourself. And so I think that's a really powerful thing to hold on to is, what within yourself, where do you feel called to say, oh, I want to move in that direction? And I have this imagination of what I would like to see in my life in this topic, and what can you do today to take those baby steps in that direction. So I think that's one of the most valuable things that you can really keep in mind this month. This is a really, really, really good month to like plant your flag, to like really make a declaration of like, okay, this is the direction that I want to move in. And it's really interesting, like how Stevie said, like they're like, I'm learning so many things about myself along the way, and I feel like I also am kind of in that space of like having to really release attachment to dreams or ambitions that I thought were what I wanted and that I thought were kind of like what I was reaching for, but understanding that that was more from like the Leo place of things, of my own ego and what would make me feel valuable and self-satisfactory. Whereas kind of embracing instead moving in the direction of the North Node and moving in the direction of Aquarius, and kind of like looking at the bigger picture and kind of releasing attachment to my individual role in anything that I'm shooting for, and rather holding attachment to the collective project that I'm contributing to, and to really hold kind of space and love for that collective project. And so that's where I think like being able to see, in this Leo season, whereas like we have so much Leo energy being activated right now, and that childish energy is like so much at play with all of this. So where can you connect that childish energy and leverage it in service to a bigger picture? That's what the question I'll leave you with.
Wow. It's all hidden. Thank you for sharing, Shrew. You ready for the next card?
Sure am.
Okay, we got the Eight of Swords. It's a picture of someone who's in the clouds, all tied up in rope, question mark, and the rope is being tugged in different directions by a bunch of birds. Okay. So the Eight of Swords upright is a card that represents feeling really trapped. Someone who's stuck in their situation and maybe feels like they don't have a choice, or knows that they have a choice but feels scared that it's a choice that falls on them. This card in the reverse represents someone who's finally giving themselves permission to be free, to make that choice, even if it's scary, even if it means disappointing people, feeling hurt, feeling like they don't know what's next, feeling like they're suspended in midair, just trying their best to find their footing. I want to commend you, whoever you are, for finally making this decision. I feel like these past 2 years, I've been talking to you. And I know it's hard. It's hard to give yourself permission. It's hard to do what's right for you, even if you know what's right for you. It's hard to go into the unknown and maybe to even do something that no one else in your life has had to do, whether it's them not experiencing life the same way or having any similar experiences. Maybe it's something that you're going against your family systems, anything like that, any cycles. I just want to applaud you and want to affirm you and really want to celebrate you. We're starting something new. This could be the start of something new, or whatever they said in High School Musical. You have a choice. You've always had a choice, and you're doing it. I'm proud of the choice that you're making for yourself. We usually don't know whether something is the right choice until after we have the information to make that assessment. So it's okay if you don't know if it's the right choice for you. It's a choice that you feel like you need to make, and it's okay to make it. You can always reorient, you can always start over. It is a choice, and it is your choice. And yeah, you may not believe it now. It may feel really hard to accept that as true in your body, but once you have the evidence, you'll see it for yourself. Okay, that's that card.
Yeah, I think it's really indicative of the eclipse. So on August 12th, we have a Leo solar eclipse, and Leo is ruled by the sun. So this is like the sun in its home sign being eclipsed by the moon. So you can imagine that's a little bit vulnerable for Leo because who likes to be, what Leo likes to be eclipsed? No Leos. They like things to be about them. So what is the moon doing? And I think that, this card and this eclipse is all about what does it look and feel like to choose yourself? What does it look and feel like to really um, let what lives in your heart live outside of your heart, and how does it feel to take, the message or the voice or the song or the art that's in your heart and to let it, play, let your free flag fly, like let yourself be kind of like the person that you kind of envision and imagine yourself when you're by yourself alone and you have like big dreams for yourself. Like, who is that version of you? Like, I think it's really important that that is kind of the person that you let out. And so much of like kind of making big shifts and embracing new beginnings and all that stuff comes with, shedding the people or the things or the beliefs that are holding us back from that version of ourselves. And this transit I think is so much like Stevie said about giving yourself permission to be free, where it's like, allowing yourself to realize that the bars that are holding, that heart-centered version of yourself back are actually, not really holding you back, and you can actually walk around them and you can like be free. You don't actually have to hold yourself back in this way. And so I really encourage, we have so many placements in Leo during this eclipse. We've got Mercury's in Leo, Jupiter's in Leo, the sun is in Leo, the moon's in Leo, and the south node's in Leo. So that's a huge, huge collection of Leo energy. It is all about Leo energy. And so it really, really is valuable for you to spend time this month really connecting with your heart and really trying to see how can you bring what's in your heart into your external reality. So I know for a lot of people, you're in environments or situations or jobs or relationships or things that you feel like are outside of your control, and there's so many elements of that like it doesn't belong to you. It's not up to you to make those decisions. But like your heart is yours, like your relationship to that dream version of yourself is yours, and there's nobody else that has control over that. There's nobody else that has dominion over that. If anybody else is having dominion over that, it's because you've handed them that control. Like, your relationship to your own heart is nobody else's responsibility, and it's nobody else's business. So what can you do, even if it's small actions privately by yourself with no one else looking on? What can you do to let your little heart free? And what can you do to like let your heart see that the light of day and see maybe the light of night, like and or like lack of light of night in this case, but like it's like what can you do to kind of bare your heart to the world and to really give yourself the chance to express yourself how you have always wanted to express yourself, so I think a really powerful exercise that you can do on or around August 12th is writing yourself a letter, like write yourself a love letter from that heart-centered version of yourself. What does your heart want you to know about yourself? It's just like this month is an incredible and powerful opportunity to really be connected with the parts of you that you feel like there isn't space for in this world, and trust that like this eclipse is making space for that heart in this world. And that like, that's part of what the transits represent, is that like you need to be boldly and fearlessly self-declarative, and you need to be declaring who you are and having people bear witness to that, and having people not just bear witness, but make space for that. And so what does that look like for you? I think it's a really valuable thing to reflect on.
Wow, what a time.
It's nuts.
It
Really
is
unique.
nuts.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the last card, if you feel so called.
This card is a read.
This card is a read. Okay, I have with me Diwata, which is also Temperance. Diwata are the healers, the teachers, the protectors that live in the space where the earth and the cosmos intersect. They want us to know that we have to listen to our spirit, to our body, to our thoughts, our dreams, all of it, all of the information that is coming to us, we must listen to. What are the calls that we are being beckoned to answer? That could mean anything. It could mean starting a band, starting to write, starting to run. Sometimes people need a rebrand and they start training for a half marathon. And I love that for them. My lungs cannot. It doesn't have to be big. It could just be small. It could be a little whisper right now. But what matters the most is that you're listening to it and giving it the time and attention. So at this point, your intuition might feel like anxiety because that's the only way you listen to it. But our intuition comes to us as a whisper, as a dream, as a song, as a thought, an image. And even if it doesn't make sense, we can still listen. We can still be curious and make time so that we give it the space to unravel and to become more clear. This is a card of balance in many, many ways and harmony. And I think in this way, the balance is being with all these different parts of you. Like Shroot was talking about, this heart-centered part of you. Maybe even these tender, vulnerable parts of you that are scared to make this decision in the Eight of Swords reversed, XYZ. All of these different parts are putting up a really strong fight to do what they feel like they need to do in order to protect you the best, to the best of their ability. So I want you to take their little hands or their fists into yours. Maybe just give them a little kiss and start to lead them somewhere else they can rest, somewhere that's quiet and comfortable and safe, and let them know that you can take it from there, that you will keep them safe. Let them know that you're grateful for all the ways that they're showing up, even if those ways have gotten you in trouble, even if they've had some consequences that you didn't want. Again, their intentions were pure, to save you, to protect you and keep you safe. But they don't have to do that right now. They don't have to do that in the same way. You get to be in control. You get to make these decisions and these choices to keep everyone safe, to keep you safe, and to keep you moving in a way that brings you closer and closer to this life that you want, that you've always wanted for yourself, but thought that you couldn't, that it wasn't for you for some reason or another. So that is my little request for you. Give it a rest. Let yourself rest. But keep going and keep trying. And be curious. That's Diwata.
Yeah. Ooh, I really feel like this one was so perfect to represent the August 28th lunar eclipse in Pisces. And that one is a doozy. It's our last Pisces eclipse from this Virgo Pisces axis. I think we have some Virgo activity next year, but this is the last Pisces eclipse. And I think that I've been trying to figure out how to like phrase this, but like I think anybody who's listening, especially if you're drawn to this podcast, you have an appreciation and an understanding that there are different planes of existence when it comes to being alive as a human being on this earth. And that, not every plane of existence is acknowledged by our reality that we live in. So, for example, largely the day to day that takes up most of our waking hours is the material plane, right? So it's the idea that we've got bills to pay, we've got a future to save up for, we've got, you know, um, earthly struggles to kind of think about and deal with, and that's where we find our jobs, and that's where we find kind of like the daily hustle and bustle of being alive as a human being, and that's the material realm that we live in. Then we've also got kind of the emotional plane, and that's the plane that is really not spoken of, and it's not really considered valuable in this capitalist society, yet it rules and drives so many decisions that are being made in the material plane. It's actually like emotionally driven decisions, and people who are a little bit more sensitive emotionally, they can find themselves really caught up in the discrepancy between what people feel and then how they actually act in the rational world, and the disconnect happening there. So you can kind of be really frustrated with people, especially during this transit, where you might find that there's a disconnect between how people are saying, like what they're saying they believe, but the actual emotional undercurrent driving their decision making is completely different than the thing that they're saying. So like if you are a person who feels disconnected from your feelings, you might find yourself kind of feeling one way and acting in another. Like that's very much on the board with this Pisces eclipse. And so I just feel like it's another layer to that is then the spiritual layer, right? Where it's like having connection to the ancestors and having connection to the entities that are here with us, but that don't necessarily take the shape of an animal or the shape of a person or anything like that, and it's more complicated and opaque than that. And that can be kind of a hard world to straddle because you're constantly taught under the capitalist framework that that world isn't real, and that it's made up, or that it can only look one way, depending on which culture you're from or religion you're from. Like it can only look that way, and every other way is wrong. like and so there's a lot of like limits and blocks that people tend to put on the spiritual universe as a result, and living in those contradictions can be quite difficult when you are a deeply spiritual person but have to navigate and confront the realities of this material world that you live in. And so I think I wouldn't be surprised if you're a person who kind of traverses between these different, realms of existence, you will find yourself traversing like crazy at the end of August. There will be a lot of like weird kind of like in between, the liminality of the end of August is going to be really, really real. And so I really want to encourage you, uh, do your best to hold multiple truths at once. Do your best to accept that there are multiple things that can be true at the same time, that there is not one true, right, correct perspective or correct answer, that, the universe unfolds around all of our decisions simultaneously at the same time. There's no kind of like, set order of how things happen, that, you're not just like a little ant floating in a sea in space. It's like your choices do have tangible outcomes, and you do have control over your choices to a certain extent. And so I think it's really important to remember that, like, you know, be kind of mindful of what your investment is in these different realms of your existence, and be mindful of what realms are useful for you to be tapping into at any given time. And that's what I feel like temperance is really about. It's this idea of being able to hold multiple of these realms and these worlds, and to be able to have your toe in one of them and your other toe in the other one, and to be able to hold that with harmony. And if you're feeling kind of discord or imbalance, or maybe a lot of it, like something I'm really struggling with is like really heavy attachment to the material world. And I've kind of realized that, like, my purpose here on earth is not really meant to be, moving and shaking in the material realm. That's not really what I'm here to do. I'm here to be kind of in between, an in-betweener. I'm here to kind of hold people's hand as they kind of cross worlds and traverse, realms and stuff like that. And so I can't be doing that if I'm so clocked into the material. And so that's been my project, and I know that's my, agenda in August, is to really kind of like integrate myself in the in between of it all, and to be able to really have the capacity to hold all those things. And so, the likelihood that you as a listener being drawn to this podcast, like, the likelihood that you're in some realm and version of that, relating to that in some way, your version of it is high. And so I just want to encourage you that, like, you have earthly responsibilities. You don't have a choice. You have to do them, sure. But how much of your soul are you giving those earthly responsibilities? How much of your drive, how much of your attention, your ambition, how much of that is in service to these material pursuits? And how much of that would be more fulfilling for you if you were to invest them in other aspects or other realms? What would it feel like to be more emotionally devoted? What would it feel like to be more spiritually devoted? So I would encourage you to kind of think about, like, what needs to go in terms of your um ties to the material world. Or maybe you need to be a material person. Maybe you're super in the spiritual and you need to lock more into the material. I don't think there's any one right or wrong, balance of these things. But I think just being able to sit with the wholeness of it during this Pisces eclipse, and to be able to ask yourself, okay, like, where do I need to be reallocating this budget of my limited time and capacity as a human being? Like, where is it best serving me to invest in, and to divest from what you need to divest from during this period of time, so that you can create space for what's coming, what you're welcoming in next.
Beautiful, pal.
Yeah. It's gonna be such a, like, aggro and spacey time to be alive.
Yeah.
So if you're
You're
in it, we're
so
sending you love.
much.
Yeah.
Well, as always, our sweet listener, you're not alone. Hit us up and let us know how these transits, how these cards end up playing out for you, what resonates, what happens, what you did about it. I'm curious. I'm nosy. So is Shroot.
Heavily.
We're incredibly invested. And we're here.
Yeah, this is a really great time for a joint reading between us if you're looking for kind of some anchoring or guidance during this month. This is a really, I mean, I don't usually recommend eclipse magic, especially with beginners and stuff like that, but like, this is the most tremendous consequential eclipse of our entire lives, this month. The eclipse season is some of the most dramatic astrology of our lifetimes, and in fact, like, human history in a lot of ways. So I think, like, even if you're not usually drawn to any kind of ritual or anything like that, this is a really good month to set, a direction, and to move in a direction that you really want to kind of move for the rest of your life. So if you're looking for some guidance and support around that, me and Stevie have a joint reading called Dance with Datura. And it's joint tarot and astrology, where it's basically similar to this podcast, but it's personal to you. It's your specific birth chart, and Stevie's tapping into your energy when they pull tarot. So you can find the link to that in the show notes. We will have that linked. And then I'm also bringing back, just for a limited time, my eclipse readings. So if you're looking for astrology focus and you want to really dive deep into what rituals could be supportive for you, what do you need to let go of, what do you want to embrace, what like newness do you want to invite into your life these next 2 years, I have an eclipse reading, which you can find. I'll link it in the show notes as well. If you're looking for, like, some Reiki, some attunement in the face of all of this, that's what Stevie's got going on. You can find that in the link in the show notes as well. And yeah, we really just encourage you to um, spend time with your heart this month, and really just be honest with yourself about what you want, and create some space in your life, in any of these realms, to be declarative about that, and to be really honest with yourself about what you want, and to let it have some room to breathe this month, and to let it take up some space in this world, and to let the world make space for what's in your heart, and to kind of force some space in the world, to force people to reckon with what's going on with you, because your what's in your heart is tremendous, and it's the beauty of being alive as a human being. And I think so much of what's coveted, if you look at, this is my favorite thing to say, I'm sure I've said it on the podcast before, but, like, if you look at ghost stories around the world, and if you look at so many stories about entities that were human and have unfinished business, you know everybody's aspiring to reach a human being to help them, because the power of being alive as a human being is that you can grow and change. And that's something that is so uniquely human, and it's what makes it so special to be alive as a human being, even with all of the fuckery and all of the pain and the mess and the suffering. Like, we have the ability to grow and change. And this is a really powerful month to dedicate your time and energy to growing and changing in the direction of your desires, in the direction of your heart. So we really encourage you to tap into that this month and, share that with us. We would love to hear. And you can also get a free reading on the pod if you want to email us instead of booking a reading. You can just email us a little like 4 sentence paragraph. You can send us a voice note on the Instagram. Both are bleedingheartsclub.pod. That's the Instagram handle. And then same bleedingheartsclub.pod@gmail.com if you want to email us. But we would love to hear from you. We would love to know what you're calling in, what you're releasing. What realms are you feeling more connected to? And what would you like to have some clarity on to move forward? Feel free to write in and we will answer your question in our next episode. So, yeah. Any thoughts, Stevie?
No thoughts, head empty,
Heartful.
heart full.
Heart open. All right, shall we wish you a wonderful and blessed eclipse season, and we will see you in Virgo season.
Bye, y'all.